Over the past 14 months, the current Open and Affirming Core team has participated in over 35 one-to-one discussions, and you have been open and candid about your understanding of our mission to embrace all as we journey the way of Jesus. We have heard from people who are excited that our church is exploring being an O&A congregation. We have heard from people who are concerned that we should not be moving in this direction, and we've heard from people who are everywhere in between these two views. Thank you for the open and honest ways you have shared your views. What have we heard? Here are some of the common questions and topics that have emerged in these conversations.
We're already a welcoming and friendly church, so why are we having these conversations in the first place?
Some feel that O&A discernment is being pushed on us by the agenda of other settings of the church, most notably the national setting of the United Church of Christ. Others have expressed concern that O&A will be pushed onto the congregation even if it's not the will of the majority of the people in our congregation. Some have said that we already welcome anyone who comes to the church, while others have expressed that we aren't as friendly as we think we are.
It is important to also note that this is a process that Christ Church Council endorsed while Ryan Byers was pastor before his departure in 2017, and has been reaffirmed several times since by the council. After Pastor Ryan's departure, O&A was specifically discussed as being a vital part of Christ Church's discernment process for finding our next pastor. We were advised that any prospective pastor would ask a search committee about where Christ Church was with the open and affirming process. And we needed to have an answer that was not simply, "We haven't talked about this." Similarly, it is important for our community to have a clear understanding of our position on this issue.
In our governance, we as a congregation make these decisions, not a national or district office. As a congregation, we decide together when and if we vote and what form any decision or changes might take. And we do it at our own pace. We have local autonomy, but honor and listen to the wisdom of other settings of the United Church of Christ.
What's the deal with all the letters, LGBTQ, etc.?
Some in the congregation are familiar and comfortable with the various identifiers for this community, and others find these designations confusing, cumbersome, and are off-putting.
What does the Bible say?
Some have expressed concern that the Bible prohibits same-gender relationships, while others have noted that the Bible calls us to love and welcome all without exception.
What about transgender issues?
Some have expressed concerns that, though they are sympathetic to homosexuality, transgenderism is a more difficult thing to accept.
How will things be different if we decide to covenant as an open and affirming congregation?
While some have expressed that by becoming an O&A congregation, we would be taking an important step in affirming our call to love and welcome all. Others have expressed concern that by doing so, we would become a gay church, prioritizing acceptance of LGBTQ individuals and families over others, or becoming an open target for ridicule and vandalism.
By far, the most common concern we've heard people express is, we don't want to split the church.
We agree. No one wants to harm this church. No one wants to tear this body of Christ apart. In fact, we want to see us grow together in faith and love as we continue our journey.
This process has raised questions that are important to people in our church and are part of the discourse in our society. These are not just theoretical issues or exercises in theological discourse. Many of these issues are real to people in our congregation and real questions for our leadership. For example, how will we as a congregation respond when
a same-gender couple want to join our church and be married in the sanctuary, and later they want to have their baby baptized?
A person who identifies as LGBTQ+ wants to serve on council or volunteer in ministry roles in the church.
A gay man, member of the church or not, asks to have a funeral at Christ Church for his husband and partner of many decades.
A transgender teen wants to confirm their faith during confirmation class, but their statement of faith explains their gender identity as a child of God created in God's image.
Again, these are not theoretical questions, but are very real questions that people are asking in congregations and communities and will be asked of Christ Church.
So what's next? The open and affirming discernment process is not a quick process. Most congregations take 3 to 5 years to go through the process because it takes time to listen, to share, to pray, to discern. One of the things that has been shared through this process is that the congregation will ultimately vote on whether we will covenant as an open and affirming congregation.
This is not the decision of the core team, the staff, or the council, or any other setting of the UCC, but instead a decision of this part of the body of Christ. While the core team is not recommending moving forward with a vote at this time, the council has endorsed continuing the process and widening the circle of our conversations with one another and our community. So what does that look like?
The current open and affirming core team will be replaced by a new covenant conversation team. This new team will be formed consisting of people, regardless of specific thoughts on ONA, to expand from one-to-one conversations to wider discussion and study groups.
The team will begin from the common covenant with which affirms our work together of humility, lifelong learning, gentleness in process, compassion, love, peace, reconciliation, healthy communication, and justice.
The team will begin to work together to begin these next steps of wider discussion, study groups, and common prayer.
There is an open invitation for anyone to join the Covenant Conversation team with the expectation that all participants are willing to affirm the team covenant and let that be the guide for the team's work together.
We thank you for your grace through this process, and we look forward to how we will continue to hear from the still speaking Spirit of God as we continue to live into our guiding statement of, we embrace all as we journey the way of Jesus.